How to tell if your child has ADHD. Full disclosure, I am not a pediatrician and most likely you aren't either, but if you find yourself checking multiple symptoms on one or both of these lists, it might be time to make that appointment. First up, we need to know there are 3 types of ADHD. The first is inattentive. This is we find something shiny and we're lost. The second is hyperactive and impulsive. That could look like going to the top of really tall objects with no concern for what is going to happen at the bottom. Or you could have combined type. You could find that your child is at the top of a really tall object, distracted by something shiny, falls and breaks an arm. And I know you are probably laughing right now, but that actually happened the night before school started last year in my home. So, welcome to the journey, right? Let's go over the symptoms. Inattentive could look something like classic short attention span. We see something shiny, right, and we're gone. You might get notes home saying, Sarah really has a hard time focusing on what we're going over in class. Or you could find that your child makes careless mistakes. For us, it looks like my son did not even write all 5 of the letters in his name on his homework, nor did he care enough to go back and check it to find that mistake for the 5th letter. It could also be that your child loses things all the time. It could be the same item repeatedly, constantly losing their homework, or it could be that they're losing everything: the dog, homework, book bag, their little brother, all the time. Inattentive ADHD could also be that your child has trouble following tedious tasks. Again, there's nothing shiny in it for me. I'm not interested. So anything monotonous or boring, you're not going to get a lot of action out of that. This could also look like parents come to me and say, I gave my child a list of 5 things and they could not even complete the first 2 or 3 instructions. Let me show you what that might look like to an ADHD child with inattentiveness. Step 1, nothing shiny in that for me. Step 2, repeat, nothing shiny in there in that one either. Step 3, I'm out. And I know I'm being funny by saying there's nothing shiny in it for them, but that is literally what inattentive ADHD looks like. If there's nothing interesting in it for your child, they could care less. And that might come home with notes saying, Johnny's really into certain subjects, but he could care less for, we struggle with that. It could also be continually switching tasks. For us in my house, that looks like my son is on the PlayStation. He's like, Mom, let's go to the trampoline. We get to the trampoline, we're there for 47 seconds, and then he's like, okay, let's go play basketball. I'm a 39-year-old woman, so I'm like, okay, I need 45 more seconds. Let's just keep doing this for 1 more minute and see what happens. So those are classic inattentive symptoms. So if you're finding 1 or more of those in your daily life, that could be an option. Hyperactive impulsive doesn't really need a lot of explaining, does it? You all have met the child that cannot sit still even in a really quiet, still environment, especially in a quiet, still environment, right? That's boring as all get out. We need to go do something. The fidgeting, the excessive physical movement, but also the excessive talking. You might hear, Henry is such a chatterbox, and not only does he talk all the time, he interrupts people when they are talking. It's so disrespectful. He doesn't know that it's disrespectful. And I'll be honest with you, it took me till I was 36 years old to realize that my interrupting was ADHD. I used to say, I have no filter. Literally, I don't have a filter because ADHD hijacks your executive functions, so you have no self-regulation. So an idea pops in here and then immediately pops out of my mouth, and either 2 things happen. 1, I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't have said that right now or ever. Or I'm like, I should have waited until they were finished talking. That was really rude to like get excited and burst in. ADHD. Lastly, your child will probably have no sense of danger or, red flags like don't do this, no awareness of something bad could happen. Again, this is on the really tall objects, and they're like, I'm gonna jump down from here and see what happens. Or we've all seen the kid at the playground, and it was probably mine, who is swinging as high as they can, and then they're like, I'm gonna jump out of this thing. And you're like, and it's terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. Last on both of these lists comes with the impulsivity is acting without thinking. Again, it's the lack of filter. The executive functions are totally hijacked. So we are, we're not I'm not going to say that, we're more of the oops, thinking without acting. There's a couple of others that will not be listed on standard reports of symptoms, but they are no less important. You might find that your child has really big reactions to something that looks really tiny in comparison. That is possibly ADHD. Again, the ADHD hijacks our executive functions, so we have no self-regulation. We have no emotional control. We can't really self-soothe. So if you find that, I use this as an example, but hear me when I say nobody likes to lose. But if your child loses a game, a video game, and there's this huge outburst of throwing things, screaming, cussing, kicking, crying, for a short time, that may not be ADHD, but it also could be. But if that outburst takes over your child's whole day, and they're like, man, I wish I hadn't lost that game, that could be ADHD. That could be no emotional control, no self-soothing, no way to contract that back into as to where most of us now could say, I lost, I'll try again. See the difference? Another thing I deal with parents on is tantrums. Again, ADHD hijacks our executive function, so we are emotionally dysregulated. So imagine you're a child, you already don't know what these big feelings are, but you know you're having them. They're out of proportion with the reaction, and then you don't have a way to verbalize that. You don't have a way to say, Mom, I'm really, really frustrated. It comes out as a tantrum, it comes out as a meltdown, and it comes out as aggression. Trust me, I've been there. So if you are finding yourself with one of these lists or both of these lists, it could be time to schedule your pediatrician appointment. I strongly recommend that 30 days before your appointment, you record your every behavior in your household. And I would ask that you have your child's teacher do the same. And the reason is when you go to your appointment, your pediatrician is going to have you and your child's teacher fill out a Vanderbilt form. And the Vanderbilt form is going to say, does your child blank, blank, blank? Never, sometimes, often, always, something like that. And if you do not have your documentation or your journal or diary of your child's behavior, you might say, no, we don't really deal with that. I'll put, never or less likely. But if you have documentation, okay, Johnny had a meltdown 4 times in the last 10 days. That might be often or always, right? Documentation is vital. In your documentation, you will want to keep up with some additional symptoms that may be paired with ADHD. This is anxiety, depression, sleep dysregulation, which could be from inattentive or hyperactive. It could be that our mind is so busy our body can't go to sleep, or it could be that our body is so busy we can't go to sleep. You might also want to look into ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. ASD, autistic spectrum disorder, conduct disorder, dyslexia. Like when I tell you, girl, you can pare down many issues with ADHD. You totally can. So again, so vital that you're taking all of this information to your pediatrician so that you can get the proper diagnosis and get on the right track. ADHD is not the end of the world. There are many, many benefits to having ADHD. If any of this resonated with you, please subscribe and follow. I am an ADHD parent, but I am also a trained parent coach, and I share tips on this channel for how we can make our lives easier, but also our child's lives easier. I can't wait to share the journey with you. Good luck. Let me know in the comments how your appointment goes.